Here's a look at a recap of your markets on this Friday, the 7th day of March. We're going to take a look at the way everything ended this week after the wild ride that was this week. Just so much volatility, ups and downs almost every other day as news came back and forth and uncertainty, mainly dealing with some of our trading partners and tariff issues. When all was said and done, though, the week ended up fairly positive in most cases. Taking a look at the auction barns around the state this week, when all was said and done, we're going to end up with about 37,000 head. At the sale barns around the state this week, buyers, aside from the volatility of the futures markets, they're getting very interested right now in flesh conditions, and that's making a big difference on the prices, getting awful close to green grass now, warming up a little bit this week. And those buyers definitely looking for cattle that will be able to be turned to grass and gain some pounds. Taking a look at some of the stick-out sales from around the auction barns this week. There wasn't very many large drafts of featherweight calves, basically looking at drafts of 20 head or larger here. Had 24 head of 538-pound steers at Kingsville Livestock Auction that sold at $410.50. Now, that was a real stick-out sale, as most of the sales did not get that high. The average statewide this week, $369. 22 head of 578-pound steers at Windsor sold at $373. Light six weights. Joplin Regional Stockyard sold 221 head of steers, 620 pounds, one drop of the gavel at $336.50. The top sale of the bigger drafts this week, 25 head at New Cambria, 624 pounds at $344. Heavy six weights, Windsor Livestock Auction sold 80 head, 678 pounds, $330.50. 34 head of 716-pound steers at Joplin Regional Stockyard sold at $306. The average statewide on those light seven weights this week at $290. Heavy seven weights, 35 head, 752 pounds, $296.50 at Windsor. Light eight weights this week, a full load, 800-pound smooth at New Cambria Livestock Market at $284. And that's a long ways above what the current feeder cattle index is currently setting at. Tina Livestock Auction, they sold a full load of 860-pound steers at $272 and a quarter. 120 head of 905-pound steers at Callaway Livestock Center sold at $268.75. Then had a full load of 1,034-pound steers at Joplin Regional Stockyards at $234. Taking a look at some of the heifer sales, a big stick-out sale on 28 head of 510-pound heifers. Callaway Livestock Center, they were tagged as fancy. $353, the average statewide on those light five-weight heifers this week at $318. Had a full load of 572-pound heifers at Windsor, $330. 71 head of 749-pound heifers at Windsor sold at $270. Had 20 head, 741-pound heifers. These were tagged as replacements at Kingsville, $279.50. The statewide average price on those light seven-weight heifers this week at $261. All in all, the markets at the brick-and-mortar auction barns were unevenly steady this week. Two lower to two higher would catch a lot of it, but there was some extremes that went several dollars on both ways. And again, a lot of that did depend on flesh condition. A few of the barns midweek, they were affected by the winter storm that came through, the wind and cold weather, a little bit of snow. And there was some of the reporters that noted this week that buyers had a hard time putting together and squaring off loads at some of the barns just due to the lighter receipts due to weather. Taking a look at the box beef cutout values, choice closed on Friday at $314.90. That ended up $3.07 higher compared to last week. Select at $305.80. That was up $3.30 for the week. The choice select spread setting at $9 and a dime. Negotiated feedlot trade. For the most part, all the sales in the north waited until Friday to occur. We did see some trade early in the week, mostly in the south. Texas had 3,700 head, 195 to 197. Kansas report about 8,000 head, mostly 195 up to 197. That was where the majority of the sales were at, the 197. A few late sales on Friday at 198. As of the 2 o'clock cutoff time on Friday, Iowa had reported about 9,000 head, 198 to 202.50. Dress sales ranged from 313 up to 320. In Nebraska, at the 2 o'clock cutoff time, they had 25,600 head. Live sales were $2 to 202. Dress sales ranged from 315 to 320. When all was said and done, somehow this week we managed to get higher money, and most of those live and dress sales $2 to $4 higher for the week. Taking a look at the futures markets, on the cattle side, we were steady to higher here, had some big gains show up on the cattle on Friday, which really helped to make things higher for the week. April live cattle, $4 higher, $200.27. June at $196.47, up $3.85. August at $194.35, up $3.37. Feeder cattle for March, $295 higher, $276.97. April, $278.15, up $3.72. May, $278.20, up $4.35. Lean hogs for April, 87 higher, $35.70. May at 90.60, up 92, and June 98.10, up 107. Turning our attention to the grain markets at the elevators around the state this week, soybeans ended up 8 to 23 cents higher. Wheat was mixed, 5 lower to 1 higher, and corn 11 to 15 higher. On Friday, corn bids in St. Louis 471, Kansas City 429 to 456. Soybean bids, St. Louis 1031, Kansas City 970 to 1020. Wheat bids, St. Louis 537 to 553, Kansas City at 521. On the Board of Trade, corn contracts, March closed 5 3/4% higher, 455 1/4. May at 469 1/4, up 5 1/4. July 475 3/4, up a nickel. Soybeans, up through about the middle of summer, the contracts were lower on Friday. However, they did close higher for the week. March beans closed on Friday down 3 3/4 at 10.10 1/4. May at 10.25 down 2 1/4. July at 10.38 3/4 down 3/4 cent. The further out contracts, they closed from a penny to a nickel higher. Wheat contracts, they closed lower on Friday and slightly uneven to lower for the week. March wheat 533 3/4, May 551 1/4, July at 565 1/2. Soybean meal for March down 60 cents a ton, 296.50. Soybean oil for March 42.87 a hundredweight, up 27 cents. With the Missouri Department of Agriculture, that's a recap of your markets for Friday. This is Tony Hancock.